Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. We've got a decent sized group with us today. Welcome to the panel, which I have cleverly decided to call Busting Myths in AI, ATS, and Other Hiring Practices in Games. And it's great to see a lot of you here. David was at the one for GDC about a month back. Joseph was what the one from GDC about a month back as well. Welcome to all anybody who's welcome back to anybody who's returning. Welcome to anybody who's new. This is something that I try to do like about once a month just to help people navigate this industry when it comes to getting hired, firing opportunities, and earning money, and finding a place, finding a home. My name is Adam Hobbs. I am the founder and sole employee of gamingcareers.gg, which is a coaching practice that's dedicated to, well, it's a career and executive coaching practice that is dedicated to this wonderful industry, which is video games. I've been working in this industry myself for over 14 years. Always loved mentorship as a part of my leadership stuff, and decided that I wanted to do coaching after my last role and do something even crazier, which was start a company in the middle of like one of the craziest times in our industry. And I'm happy to say that stuff has been pretty good. As a part of it, I want to give back to my community and provide resources where there may not be any. Like when I first got into games over 14 years ago, there was nothing like this, where I was able to like, have an audience with, people who actually do hiring in this business. And I hope that for everybody who's here today, that you get something out of this. I know I will. And without further ado, I would love to introduce our wonderful and amazing qualified panelists today. We'll start with Sean. Sean, introduce yourself. Where are you from, and what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me again, Adam. Sean Ginney. I go by the clever nickname, the Recruiting Paladin on LinkedIn. Trying to make that stick, so keep it up. Yeah, gotta reference my D&D nerds out there. I'm currently the lead recruiter for ZeniMax Media. So I handle basically all the hiring for everything except for Bethesda Game Studios in the North America sector of our company. So id Software, ZeniMax Online, a lot of our internal processes, IT, central technology, HR, branding, marketing, kind of whatever. Essentially, whenever there's a role that comes up in North America that's not Bethesda, they say, "All right, Sean, here you go," and I take it and count my blessings that I have work to do. so, just here to hopefully answer some questions, get some insight, and actually hopefully learn a few things as well while I'm at it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And Josh, tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this morning. Happy Friday. My name is Josh Jacobs. Been with Mattel now for, I want to say, just broke my 90-day mark last week, but I've been recruiting for way more than 90 days. Started, what, 14 years ago now in the agency world. So if you ever got a spammy agency recruitment agency ever reaching out to you, I was probably on that side of the fence for a little bit, and then organically over the years, I've just went more in-house with automotive brands like Audi. Went in-house with AKQA, which is more of the agency world at the really tip of the iceberg of ad tech talent starting to really come to fruition and brands that were already signed on as clients really starting to poach internal agency talent. And that led me to Activision. I was at Activision for close to 2.5 years, and then went to TikTok for 5, and now I'm over at Mattel, and we are building something very exciting as a self-publisher now with this Mattel Digital Studio, and then we have the other side, which is really focused on digitalizing existing brand deals or products that are already out in the ecosystem of bringing to market. So today, I'm excited to answer any calls. I'm really leading point now on talent and making sure that the gaming community is well aware that we're taking this very serious. And we are here to not only make hires, but also leave the community motivated and educated on how this world is just continuing to evolve and how mobile has played such a factor in more recent mobile gaming jobs that you'll see out there. So I'm excited to connect with all of you today, answer some questions, and always keep that door open to follow up with me afterward. So thanks for hosting, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, before we leave today, a couple of things. I'm going to sort of ask our panelists some, important questions. Like towards the end, maybe at like the 15-minute mark, we'll turn it over and ask, and get questions from the attendees. And then we'll share contact information towards the end so that you guys can like stay in contact with all of us, which we would absolutely love. So let's just jump into it. So, you know, one of the main reasons why I wanted to put this together is because I have seen out there in the social media sphere just a lot of like interesting takes on like, how companies are using AI to hire and, how companies are using ATS or applicant tracking system. It's safe to say that there's a lot of like bad info out there, a lot of untruths being spoken. And so I wanted to use this as an opportunity for us to like just sort of set the record straight. Um, we all know AI is here. It's not going anywhere. It's going to become more and more a part of our lives and our jobs as like time goes on. That much we know, right? But my first question for you guys is like, at this point, like, has AI changed the way you search for candidates? And how much is AI really being used currently in your talent search?
Yeah. Happy to jump in first, and then Sean, we could tag team this. We
Go
could
for it. I'll let you,
WWE
man.
style tag team this one. Um, I would say AI is presented itself as a tool for us as recruiters. So there was a time, I want to say 12 years ago, when I was presented this playbook of Boolean searching. So, what is Boolean searching? That is essentially us coding and recruiting code, which is basically pulling out the keywords that will extract and populate the best qualified candidates on platforms such as LinkedIn or Indeed or Monster Jobs at the time. So, what that would do is have parentheses, quotation marks, ands, ors, you name it. AI has pretty much proven that that is now dead. And now AI has accelerated the pace of things becoming more native language centric for us as recruiters. So, if anything, it's helped uplift the need to learn code and the Boolean code. And now it's just more advanced to the point where you're really pulling the keywords from the briefs that you're having internally with the hiring managers, and you're able to say, hey, if we were to narrow this down to like 7 keywords, like what is it that you're truly looking for? So once we have that intake meeting and we're fully briefed on what we're looking for, we can now use AI and coach AI on saying like, hey, if I see Adam. I want to find 6 more Adams because here's the common thread of keywords that Adam brings to the table that we're personally interested in because that's the lack of value that we have on our team. So I don't see it as a mechanism of making my job automated. I see it, if anything, making it more efficient. And I think that's the biggest push about AI at this stage of recruitment. It's like, how can you buy yourself time back? How can you be more efficient? How can you weave out 800 resumes into the top 20 resumes? So it's not spooking me. It shouldn't spook you. If anything, it's helping us get to the core value candidates of what the job description is actually broadcasting versus the bulk of resumes that are coming in that may also be using AI for just mass distribution and visibility of their resume to go out. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think and I'll actually second a lot of what you had said there, especially in terms of just efficiency over automation. AI is a tool, and we are, in my opinion, and the little bit of, not a little bit, the decent amount of research I've done on the topic, we're still pretty far away from AI replacing jobs altogether, like completely. Especially in recruitment. You absolutely still need a human touch to that. I don't know if anybody's ever gone through a completely automated job process where you interview with basically you record yourself answering questions in a video, and then people review. I mean, it's so I have never heard a good bit of feedback on one of those processes. It's always very like it felt very robotic. It felt very cold. I never felt like I was actually being considered because there's no one there to make you feel like you're being considered. It's just I'm going to put myself out there and then hope somewhere at some point I get picked based off of very unknown criteria. So having a human element to the process is still extremely important, because also understand that looking for a job is a two-way street. Just because you're looking for a job, and even let's just say the individual in question here, this hypothetical person has been out of work for over 2 years, it's still important for them to qualify that the job's right for them too. It's not just oh, I work for ZeniMax and I didn't make sure that Josh is the person I want to hire for my team. Josh also needs to make sure that he wants to work for my team. And if I am just a robot, or worse than that, if I'm just a platform to record your answers to submit as an application, you're never going to get an understanding or a sense if that's a company you want to work for. And I think that there is a place for those types of things, even if I'm not a fan of it. But if we're talking in industries that represent like RPOs, which is kind of like call center style high volume recruitment for like baggage, like baggage people over at like Delta Airlines. You're going to hire like
What does
3,000
that
new
mean,
people.
RPO? Is that that acronym?
It's recruitment processing and outsourcing.
Outsourcing.
So
Yep.
Got it.
my first big company that I worked for was an RPO company. My second was agency, and we did like my first big job was basically we're hiring truck drivers for waste management, and we'd have to hire all over the United States. We'd have to hire thousands of these people in a bunch of like really populated cities and a bunch of really rural cities. And so in certain situations like that, I think there is some room to kind of automate certain processes. But the more skilled you are making a position, the more you need to step away from that. So I think AI tools can be really useful to help find things, to make your wording better. I use it mainly just to make sure I don't sound like an idiot when I'm sending candidates to hiring managers, like, hey, this is why this guy looks good. And AI can make that sound a lot better than I can. But I don't think it's at all a replacement for recruitment or for that human point of
Yeah,
contact.
and that's what I'm kind of hearing from you guys too, is that it's like a tool. It helps like embellish the work that you do, but it's not. I'm not getting the sense that there's like a deep integration right now.
Well, let me say it this way, Adam. Like, I am terrible at writing. In fact, I paid a friend of mine $5 to write a one-page paper in college because I just couldn't be bothered to do it. Do you really, do you really want this guy writing your write up to the hiring manager, being like, "Oh, John,
Hmm.
he's a cool dude," versus AI who can make that whole sentence and paragraph about you much more eloquent? So I would say like there are certainly some really, really good things about AI, and it can be scary because you're putting the hands into a machine, rather than a person. But people are not always as reliable either. So I think it's just because it's an unknown and it's new is kind of what makes it scary. And the more that we kind of get used to it and adopt it into the processes and just kind of make it part of the way we work, it'll be a lot less scary as we just kind of get more familiar with it.
I
Hmm.
agree. I agree. And Sean, just to piggyback off what you just said, I look at it as an assistant for me. It's my personal EA, and it's Josh 2.0. Like in a world where Claude, for example, if you start talking to Claude, I'll do this on car rides home. Not to just be funny here, but I'm serious. I'll talk to Claude sometimes and just have conversations. Claude will remember individuals or topics that I've brought in the past and surface it into a question that I'll have for it. So I think when you use it like that and you're just not relying on its answers to then relay back to someone else, then you're cannibalizing your own value because now you're just saying, "Hey, here's the outcome, here's the expectation, or here's what's being proposed, here's what I'm presenting forward. What should be the expected outcome here?" If you're coaching it to be more like you, then you're minimizing the risk of cannibalizing your value, and if anything, adding a second version of yourself that's getting to know you. Now, of course, that's how trustworthy you want to be with it. I've found a ton of
Hmm.
value in it. But furthermore, when it comes to like summaries, like Sean was saying, I know my client group, and they're going to know right away if it's coming from me or if it's not coming from me. So I will condense a 30-minute conversation, to Sean's point, into 5 bullets around what value I sought out the most from this individual or this candidate, and I'll put my own spin to it. But at least it helps with the condensing piece. And the three biggest things I'm attracted to is the value that's being added and how relevant of an experience that you're just rolling off of or that you're currently in is going to uplift you in this role and why you're attracted to the brand at this stage of the brand's development. The compensation expectations, and then us being in the office 4 days a week. That's a crucial component. And I don't want to limit anybody to like a 30-mile, 40-mile radius, even though the team would love that. And of course, we would love that because we also want to be relatable as a human to that individuals. If they have a family and 4 days a week is a tough commitment, they live in Simi Valley or somewhere further north, we want to set them up for success. So my job is really getting all of the dots connected in their Bermuda Triangle of interest of passion and profession and commute and work-life balance, and then presenting that forward. But a 15-minute conversation could be condensed into 5 bullet points, the way that I want the AI to be representing me. So that's also something I would add to it.
Yeah.
Good, good. Yeah. No, great, great. No, this is super helpful. I mean, at least even for me, and this is part of my world. So let's flip it a little bit, right? So like what are the biggest myths that you're hearing about AI and hiring in games right now?
Yeah, that AI is doing all the reviewing, that my resume is not getting looked at accurately enough. On the flip side, are these resumes being generated by AI? Did this candidate even put any effort into this, or did they just put it into an AI generator and say, here's the job description I'm looking at, here's the resume I bring to the table, help me be as attractive as possible? Because back to the earlier example of how ATSs are being impacted and how AI is upping their skill set, you know, it's our job to really go beyond the keyword matching because it's not hard to keyword match and gamify. We're all gamers on this call. It's not hard to gamify the system if you're just that much more dialed into how LinkedIn is working and how the internet works. Most of us here on this call understand there is a library of words, and utilizing a search engine is how you're going to get the most pinpoint precise answer that you're looking for at a hyper speed, yeah, at hyper speed. So, when it comes to what we're doing, we have to go beyond what the keywords are presenting, and that's when it typically leads to a call and a screen. So, once you're doing that human to human interaction, there's nothing AI can save in that situation. So myth wise, I would say it's those two things. It's mass distribution. How authentic is this resume versus what's being forcefully populated to give this candidate hope and try to make the most of what their experience really represents. And then on our side, is the AI feeding us resumes that is matching the true value of what's being asked here?
Mhm. Yeah, Josh, you definitely summarized it really well there. There's not much more I can add in terms of like other myths because I think you definitely covered the bases. But one thing that I think I can provide a little bit of at least insight from my perspective is when when people are complaining that or concerned, I say concerned is more of a neutral term. When people are concerned that, hey, my resume is never going to get seen because an AI model is just reviewing things and what chance do I have? To me, and this might come off a little harsh, but that is very much a defeatist attitude. That just tells me that you need to, if that is happening to you and you feel like, hey, I'm not getting any callbacks because AI is just running the game now. And if that is truly how you feel, then you need to figure out a way to adapt. Then why is my resume? If that is the case, and we don't really use AI for screening. We don't have an AI tool to screen resumes. We do it all manually here. But there are a lot of companies who do use AI tools for screening resumes. And if that is the case, where your resume is still not getting captured, then why is it the case? So you could either look at it and say, well, this isn't working for me, and I'm never going to get anywhere, and it's all AI's fault. And it's like, sure, you can look at it that way, and that's never going to get you to the next stage. Complaining about something means you're just going to be staying stuck in that spot of, well, oh, what was me, versus you can look and say, okay, well, why is my resume not getting looked at? Do I need to look at better words? Am I using a very generic resume for hyper specific roles? Am I
Hmm.
customizing my resume to represent what the managers are looking for? Am I putting keywords and matching the descriptions to a certain extent without copying the job description? But am I relating my experience to what hiring managers are looking for? Additional to that, am I also in my resume, am I also making sure that I'm not just putting my deliverables, but I'm also putting the result of my actions? It very well could be that your resume is actually getting flagged as a possible positive thing, and a recruiter reviews your resume after AI says, hey, this looks like it might fit your profile. And then we look at it and say, actually, it doesn't, because we really need somebody who is results driven, not deliverables driven. And again, this is all very specific to the job, but these are things that people are just generally not considering is, oh, maybe there's something that I can do better to make myself more marketable to these AI systems or just to recruiters in general. Because these AI recruitment tools are based off of generic recruiter mindsets. And so if you're doing something to capture the attention of AI, you are in turn going to also be capturing the attention of recruiters, human recruiters, because again, it's based off of the way we think and the things that are important to us. So by basically, it's throwing one stone and killing two birds with it. I mean, to use an analogy. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I definitely agree with you on that, Josh.
Right.
And,
Well, what about
oh,
the sorry, just for a second here,
yeah,
Josh. What
yeah.
about, like, people who complain that, like, they submitted a resume or an application, and 15 minutes later they got a rejection, or they're getting rejections
Yeah.
at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, how do you explain that to people who are on the call?
Yeah, I would say that again, and it's look at if I send in 50 resumes and most of, if not all of them, come back within a few minutes, then it's very obvious that first off, there's an AI tool in place screening resumes. No recruiter is going to be that fast unless it's just coincidental. But again, if you're doing it over multiple resumes or multiple applications, then it's not a coincidence. Um, and and then it just still comes back to, well, how do I, looking at yourself, looking inward, what am I doing wrong? If 50 out of 50 of my applications got rejected very quickly after submitting them, why is that the case? What can I do differently? How can I
Mm.
approach the next 50 applications I send in to be more successful? Um, you know, Rejection coming at 2 a.m. I mean, dang, I work at 2 a.m. sometimes. It's recruiters don't have like normal 9 to 5 schedules. Like we kind of
Right.
do, but like there are so many occasions where like I might have to interview somebody who's in the UK. Because they're looking for a position back in the United States and they are working on UK time, and I'm not going to make them wake up at 4 a.m. to talk to me. I'm trying to impress them. I want them to come work for me, so I'm going to accommodate their schedules. There are often times where I'm working way late into the night of my own accord, not being forced by my company, but my own accord. I'm like, I'm just going to do this now, get it over with. And so, yeah, I'll eventually occasionally send out rejection emails late at night, but that has nothing to do with your efficiency. That's just when I'm working. that's just my personal hours of
Yeah,
operation.
yeah. Like, you're just, you're burning, you're up late, but what I'm hearing is that it's not some random, like, you pushed a button that said reject everybody at 2 o'clock, or
No,
something like
if I'm gonna schedule
that.
out a mass amount of rejections, like bulk rejections, I'll send it for like an arbitrary time throughout the day so it doesn't. I mean, there's a little
Exactly.
bit of an inside tip.
Yeah.
You guys are kind of hearing the inside tricks of a recruiter. I'll send things. I'll be like, send these rejections at like 9:14 a.m. so it doesn't look like I'm just sending it all as a batch. I mean,
Yes.
it
Yes.
kind of is what it is. It doesn't feel good to feel like you're a part of just like a batch rejection. If anything, at least at the subconscious level, you'll feel a little bit better about being rejected, if thinking that you were personally reached out to about it, rather than just like, oh, I was one of 300 people who got this email. um, at the same time, though, like, you have to understand, we don't have time to send out 300 individual emails to people saying, sorry you didn't get the job, or sorry we filled this position already. We have families and lives and hobbies. We got things to do. We can't be emailing all day and all night.
It's true. And to Sean's point, Adam, to answer your question directly, it is human initiated, right? It's not AI. It's not automatically happening if the credentials don't meet and the AI bot is now at the forefront of the decision. That's debunked. That's not happening. It is a manual trigger that goes out. But to Sean's point, like I'm a night owl as well. I have a 2 year old, and sometimes that zenful state to be effective with looking at resumes is 9 o'clock at night till 11.
Mhm.
And there's going to be a bulk that you initiate into the hiring manager review stage. And then there's going to be a bulk that you have queued up to go ahead and reject appropriately. So if there are individuals on this call who have experience at 2 a.m., that is not AI. That is just a late night recruiter and forgot to set their times to, an appropriate work schedule time.
Yeah, makes
100%.
sense.
Yeah.
Well, this is actually really great because I feel it dovetails nicely into this next question. And it's a kind of a loaded question. So let me guide it the best that I possibly can. Like really it is like in your own words, what is an ATS? What is an applicant tracking system? And I think what would really help a lot of people is like, what do you see on your end? Because we know what we see as the applicants, right? But what do you guys see? Like, what does it look like and how does it help you do your job?
Yeah, Sean, I could jump in first here. So, an applicant tracking system, there's hundreds of these things out there. The core ones are at some of the bigger firms, some of the bigger studios, and depending on where you are, like when I was at TikTok, for example, we had our own in-house one because they just love to own their IP for every tool that they utilize. So, depending on where you net out, the recruiting story is not overly sophisticated to build, right? Like we're talking the story of applicants applied, source of application, what stage that they're in, how long the role has been open for, and then where they are in the offer stage or where they are in the interview process. And then it pulls data reports for us, of course, by bulk to tell the holistic story. So the applicant tracking system on our end, we're able to see who's applying, where they're applying from, what time they applied, what day they applied, and it's going to give you a match score, at least with the ATS that we're looking at. Now, there have been 5 out of 5s that I've been presented that I don't agree with. And then there's been 1 out of 5s that I've received that we've made hires on. So, to tie it back into the AI concerning piece of this topic, that's where that human touch really comes into play, where you don't really know until you get the candidate on the call. But to summarize an applicant tracking system, it's our Excel if we were in the finance world. It's our it's our Salesforce if we're on the enterprise selling side of the business, and it's just what keeps us organized. I don't know about you, Sean, but I think over the years, and we just made this push this week, you know, us as recruiters have our own Excel documents. We're using LinkedIn Recruiter. We're using all these different sourcing platforms and tools that are available for the recruiting community, which then populates as a CSV. If you use your ATS effectively and you're paying top dollar for it for 25 seats to 30 seats at scale, that should be telling you the story that you need to know. So the ATS is really our central hub to telling the recruitment narrative for each role.
Yeah,
Mm.
100%. It's pretty basic. I was actually trying to see if I could do like a share screen. I was going to show you a test candidate in my applicant tracking system, but I don't see a share screen button here. So, but
Hold on for a
basically,
second. We can
we
change
can do
that
that. Can
though.
we do
Oh
that?
yeah.
I
Give me
wouldn't mind.
1 second here.
I got a
Yeah.
test candidate queued up.
Share settings. Hold on, host. Um, it says that you can share actually.
I just don't see a button to let me do that. That's the only problem.
Oh
Um,
boy.
yeah, it's really not a big deal. To be honest with you, it's nothing special. Like the main thing, Josh, 100% right. It's mainly like we're looking at a resume, right? It's a database of resumes. It's all it is. And then there's a lot of different like, tools for reporting. There's tools for communication, allowing for like batch processing. So if we have a an applicant pool for a position that has like 1,000 people in it, we can select multiple at one time and do like, okay, all these people are moving to this stage. These people are going to be rejected. These people are going to be, put on a do not call list or whatever it might be. We have tools to like anonymize people in systems due to like our GDPR regulations, which, if you don't know, is the European standard for like data privacy. So if you ever like, hey, I don't want to ever talk to this company again, they've wronged me, you email them and say, please remove all of my data from your system, and legally any company needs to do that. So we have tools to kind of help you do that. And all these ATS systems are basically just big applications to review, score resumes, and communicate to people in batch processes. And then recruiters have a number of different tools to do a number of different things. Like Josh was saying, LinkedIn Recruiter to find people, Indeed accounts depending on what you're looking for. We use Monday.com for like candidate tracking. Our ATS system has a terrible reporting. In fact, 90% of the recruitment ATS systems I've used in the past are terrible at reporting. So we use Monday. We use Monday for that.
And
To just
what
kind
are you
of
guys using currently? I'm curious. Are you guys using proprietary
we
systems or?
No, currently at ZeniMax we're using a ATS called iCIMS. Lowercase I CIMS uppercase. It's not great. I'm not a fan of it. It's very bulky. It's extremely robust. Like, you can do a lot with it, but you need to kind of be like an expert. You kind of need to know. Um, it's kind of like being like an Outlook SME. Like, you would need to know the insides and the outsides, the back end of it to make it work the way you want it to work. And it's so clunky that we're not a fan of it. But it's what we
And what
have.
about you,
So
Josh? What are you guys using for your ATS?
So we're using Smart Recruiter. Smart Recruiter is one of many. There's a ton of
Yeah.
them out there. There's Greenhouse that, and you know
yeah,
what?
it's the
As a
best.
candidate, you'll be able to see the ATS. So when you click on the job link and you click apply, it's going to say presented by X ATS system.
Yeah,
So that way, if you have an interest to check out these ATSs, again, they all tell the same story. It's just around which user interface is the most relatable to that team or that company. So
yeah,
Smart Recruiter has been fantastic for us. They have what I like about Smart Recruiter. They have a marketplace very similar to Greenhouse, where there is a application within the ATS where you could then integrate with other recruitment tools, such as resume review, such as transcription of conversations, even though we don't really need that because I do all my calls on Teams and Teams transcribes it. But there's a ton of integrations like LinkedIn Recruiter. If like I do an outreach on LinkedIn Recruiter, it could be filtered and fed right into into the ATS, so it shows the source of
that's
hires.
perfect.
I sourced that candidate versus they applied and where did they really come from. So we use Smart Recruiter, Adam, and it's been working for us.
I'm
Mm.
so jealous. I wish I had LinkedIn Recruiter integration. There are so many times where I'll reach out to somebody and be like, "Oh, I interviewed us for that position like a year ago and they rejected me." And I'm like, I can't go and check every single person I reach out to on LinkedIn to see if they've applied before. So sometimes I just run into the fact that, like, yeah, some people are going to just have that thought, and then they're going to tell me other opinions about how terrible our process is. So I'll just listen.
So let's get back. Tell me, guys, what are some of the bigger myths that you're hearing about ATS out there?
I think it comes back down to the AI, like just like the AI reviewing all my stuff, making all the decisions.
Right.
I mean, to me, a lot of the concerns that I continuously hear is just AI runs the whole gambit. Humans aren't really looking at anything anymore. They're not being considered for things, and that definitely is a myth. I mean, there are definitely AI is making the process more efficient, so you can do more with less people, right? If I can now spend 30 minutes reviewing 200 resumes because of AI tools, that's better for me than spending 3 hours to review 300 resumes. There are certainly things that make it more efficient, but it's still going to require a person. A robot is not making the ultimate decisions for you. Now, I think I saw a question, and I know we're going to get to like all the questions from the chat at the end, but I remember there was something mentioned about knockout questions, and knockout questions are
Mm.
set up by the people though. Like, and a computer is not like the AI brain is not generating these knockout questions and just saying, oh, arbitrarily we're going to make this a thing. It's, even if it does, even if that is something that some systems have in place, it's still going to require a person to approve that message. It's still going to
And the
say,
knockout
okay,
question is just for anybody who doesn't know.
yeah, a knockout question would be like, for example, if this position is like, for example, actually, perfect example, id Software, people who make Doom, they have a full in-office policy now. They've completely returned to 5 days a week into the office in Dallas. And so requirement is that you have to either work out of Dallas or or relocate to Dallas. And if you're not willing to do that, then there's no point in us having a conversation. So a knockout
Mhm.
question would be, do you reside in Dallas, or are you at least willing to relocate to Dallas? If you answer no to that question, you're going to get an automatic rejection. Because why would why would either of us, the candidate or the recruiter, entertain a conversation where it's just not going to go anywhere? Like, I don't want to waste your time. Hopefully you don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my time. Right. So we'll put the knockout question in place to just make sure that we don't run into those issues right off the bat.
Mhm. Great. Great. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, I think Sean tackled everything. It's really comes down to how committed is the recruitment team internally, and how accountable they're going to be to fully adopting the ATS of their selection. So I think the buzzword, I mean, at all these recruitment conferences has been how we're integrating with AI, how we're integrating with AI. So I think all of them have their own AI functionality at this point. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of which one is your team going to fully commit to, and whoever is the VP that's securing that book of business with X, Y, or Z ATS, it's really on them to deploy down to their team, and that team will either show that the value is there, or ladder up enough data points where it's really not that transferable to our line of work. And if that's the case,
Yeah.
the next year they'll shop a new one. So.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
And Adam,
oh, go ahead. What were you going to say,
oh yeah,
Sean?
real quick. I wanted to give just kind of a bit of a generic advice to anybody listening and interested. And this I think will help anybody who's seeking a job. Design your like resume, your engagement with that company, whatever, however you're going to try to get a job. Design it with the intention that the worst person imaginable, the worst recruiter out there, the worst HR team is going to be the people reviewing your resume, reviewing your work. Just make that the standard. My resume, if I submit it to Facebook, if I submit it to Rockstar, if I submit it to ZeniMax Online Studios, that they're, and I'm not the worst, but that the worst person is going to be the one reviewing it. Because if you design it with the worst in mind, the chances that you're getting the worst are very low. But you're then going to be designing your resume and communicating what you've done, your experiences, your ideas in such a way that the great recruiters, the good recruiters, and even the mediocre recruiters out there will have a much easier time digesting what you can do and what you bring to the table. Right? Because if the worst recruiter out there, if you design it in a way that the worst recruiter can understand what you do, then the best recruiter is going to have a significantly easier time getting to from point A to point B and qualifying your resume.
I'm so glad that you said that too, because one of the things that I share with my clients all the time, which is make it as easy as possible for them to figure out how good you are, right?
Like, small pet peeve, if you provide me a hyperlink but do not make that hyperlink clickable, like in my brain subconsciously I'm already knocking you down a point. Like, it's
Yep.
so easy to just give me a simple one button click. And like, it's not a big deal to copy and paste a URL. Not a big deal. But just the fact that you took the time to make it significantly easier for me to do that, to get to your web page, makes me more engaged in your profile. The more annoying your resume is to navigate, the more annoying your experience is, even if it's minor, but still, like, little things add up. Like, at the end of reviewing your resume, and I've had to do 3 or 4 extra steps normally than I don't normally have to do, I'm going to start creating little things in my brain about you. Right? It's just human
Hmm.
nature. We're only
Yeah.
human. We're going to create these unconscious biases whether we like to or not. And so the more you can do to kind of bridge that gap and make my life easier as a person who's going to be reviewing you and potentially trying to get you a job with us, the more likely I'm going to want to engage with you. And if I'm between
Mm.
candidate A and candidate B and both things are all equal, both candidates are great, but candidate B gave me significantly more work to get to those answers, candidate A in my brain and in hiring manager's brain is the better candidate.
Yeah, yeah.
hands
Yeah.
down.
Well, that's and it's. I want to ask you guys one last question before we go to the attendees. But like right now, there seem to be more candidates than there are jobs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think the big question that's on my mind is like, what can candidates do to help you find them easier, to help you make a quicker decision on them? Like, what are some of the things that you've seen that really help people stand out?
I'll go first on this one.
Yeah.
The narrative has to be the narrative of your resume has to be a story. And the better your story is showing this upward progression towards the role that you just applied for, then the higher your chances and the higher probability that you're going to get that first call. Also, if you pair that with outreach to individuals that you may already know at that company, or you've asked friends of friends who know someone at that company, and you start to come at it from multiple angles, that way it eventually makes its way to the recruiter's boss, the hiring manager directly, and then your name is now brought up to be like, hey, Josh, I want you to talk to Brian. He comes from a referral of Tom, who Tom used to be roommates with their cousin at USC. I don't know. But you have to think beyond just the click and pray. And you got to be click, pray, follow up, research, use LinkedIn beyond job searching and network. Go out there and be a networking animal. The gaming community, and we talked about this yesterday in our pre-brief before this, the gaming community is so welcoming to
Hmm.
all all factors of who's contributing to it, whether you're a job seeker, whether you're a current employee there. If you look at the networking events that are constantly popping up all over the country, the online communities that are out there, like gaming is meant to entertain. So those who work at those companies, they also understand the responsibility to entertain and keep the name of who they're working for top of mind and welcoming enough to where, oh my gosh, you work in Mattel, or oh my gosh, you work at Activision. What's it like over there? I've been playing Call of Duty my entire life. Like I've always wanted to break into working in a studio somewhere. So, I would definitely lean on don't click and pray. Make sure the story is leading up into the role you're applying for. For example, like there's data analyst roles that are in the thousands of applicants that, the volume of candidates are in the thousands. And some of these narratives are and you also have to understand the broader offering of data analysts. A lot of healthcare companies and a lot of banks are producing some of this top talent, and where I have to be a little bit more lenient and ease up on their narratives is okay, maybe this individual just hasn't had the opportunity to break into gaming yet, but their passion is there. So every transferable skill set that they have from CVS Health to JP Morgan to X fintech company and now they're applying for us role, I'm not going to shortlist them entirely just yet because maybe there's something about gaming that really is at their core and they're willing to push aside the industry that they've just had the opportunity to build their skills for. And now we're able to blend gaming passion with their skill set profession. And now it's a beautiful marriage. We saw a lot of success of that at Activision. So a lot of our strategy team were ex-consultants from the big four. The Bains, the BCGs, the Deloittes, the PwCs, and you'd be surprised how all of that professionalism drops and all of that gaming enthusiast it just pierces through the conversation. And now it's just around the skill sets there. This is where I've had a difficult time breaking into gaming. But if I
Hmm.
was ever presented the opportunity to, I know I would just be able to blend the two together seamlessly. So, that's
No,
that's
that's
what I
really
would say.
uplifting, actually. Like that studios might still be taking a chance on outsiders, people who just have like, good passion and good skill and good transferable skills.
Well, Adam, the reality of it is the community is so small, depending on where you are in the country. Like LA, so for example, LA user acquisition managers, that's a very difficult search because organically, the Bay Area has been at the forefront of mobile development and the forefront of tech. So by nature, the Scopelys of the world or the Niantics of the world and just broader representation in the Bay Area, they have a higher density of user acquisition performance marketers when it comes to mobile specific experience. Whereas in LA, we have a lot of entertainment studio candidates, and just through the nature of what is available at the disposal of you pursuing that path. So we have to look beyond the actual gaming experience at times and look for the transferable narrative of who's a paid media background, who understands big budget marketing, who more recently has gravitated towards X, Y, and Z clients and finally got their opportunity to represent, let's say, Activision for a campaign, but they've been working at Dentsu Games for the past, 10 months as a client. So you have to look beyond just what is available within your market, and you have to really try to get as close as you can to, again, the story and why the story makes sense. So when you're building your
Hmm.
resume to all the attendees on the call, make sure that the story makes sense. Don't try to overly populate your resume just to make sure that the depth is there and it looks long. Even if it's three experiences, make sure that those three experiences make sense to why you're applying for a director of product live services.
Hmm.
Don't list everything. You don't have to. And to Sean's point, it's going to just give us more to pick out and overly focus on and unfortunately sometimes reject.
Well, yeah, and Sean, you mentioned too, like something that would make you deduct a point from somebody's like, score, essentially, right? Like, what
Right.
have been one of the most effective ways a candidate has caught your eye, like in recent months?
Yeah, making me laugh. If you can do something that's gonna tickle my fancy, that's gonna cause me to chuckle, like you're automatically just you're winning. You're already in a very positive bucket. I think that's also a really hard thing to do, right? Like you can't rely on that. I don't think everybody can rely on like a specific sense of humor or certain skill in making people laugh because it's also very subjective. You might send something to somebody thinking it's very funny like me, and then you send it to somebody else and they are either very confused or maybe even offended by jokes. Who knows? But I think that there's a couple of things that I think you should really be focusing on. Um, with Josh's point, telling the story of your resume, making it efficient, making it, you know, um, showcase your best self. Your resume is really a piece of artwork. Like it's not a pretty piece of artwork. It's kind of the worst piece of artwork you can imagine, but it is artwork. Like it's intentional, but it's intentional. Like what is art, right? Like what is the difference between my son putting a bunch of like colors with crayons on a piece of paper versus what Picasso does? It's intention, right? Picasso has an intention to what he's doing. My kid's just putting colors on paper. He's just enjoying that thing. Both are kind of considered art, but one is considered art, a masterpiece, and one is just my child's drawing that I love. But if I showed it to an art exhibitor or somebody in the art world, be like, it's just a kid's drawing, right? So it's all about intention. If make your resume efficient, right? Don't give me a 4-page resume, especially if unless you're like a CEO. Unless you're C-suite, your resume should be a page long, 2 at most. Um, you know, if you have a summary in your resume, this is a little bit of a controversial. This is my hot take on resumes. I think summaries and profiles, overviews, whatever you want to call it, that intro paragraph to kind of introduce yourself in your resume is the biggest detriment to resumes because what it does is it gives lazy recruiters a really quick way to reject you. Oh, I didn't
Mm.
see what I wanted to in the first 5 seconds of reviewing somebody's resume. And
Yeah.
because they gave me this little bulk information that summarizes what they can do, I don't need to look at the rest of their resume. And if they looked at the rest of their resume, they might see, oh, actually, this person did this, this, and this. They didn't mention in their paragraph, but that's actually what I'm looking for. They'll never get to that. And again, like I said, design your resume with the intention of the worst person looking at it. So a lazy recruiter looks at that paragraph and says, "Nah, I'm good. I got 40 other people to review. I'm sure someone will be more appealing," and they just reject you without a second thought. Right? Everything that on your resume should be done intentionally. If it is not there with a purpose, it is consider it taking away from your resume. It detracts from the value of your resume. So
Mm.
make it very intentional. I do also want to really promote referrals. Kind of going back to your original question, Adam, about what can people do to stand out from the pack. Uh, every metric, and I've done a lot of, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and post this now. It's a shameless plug, sorry. This is a video and a presentation that I give quite often. It is essentially how to, so the racist intro. Yeah, this is a presentation I do about basically how to connect with people on LinkedIn, turn those just random connections into meaningful relationships, and then turn those relationships into people who will actually refer you to jobs. And it's a step-by-step guide. I've had a lot of people come back to me with saying that they've had a lot of success with that. They've got their first job, whatever it might be. So I'd highly recommend taking a look at it, listening to it. Do me a small favor, don't repost it or reshare it. I can keep it as a private link, but if it starts getting like a lot of attention, branding will ask me to take it down. So please do me that favor.
Got it. Got it. Well, thank
Right.
you for sharing that. That's huge.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and I want to real quick go back to the metrics part of this, because it's incredible how much better hiring referrals are than hiring externally. From speed of hire, quality of hire, ability that person will accept the position, the longevity that person stays at the company. It's good for employee morale. Like there is not a single metric where a referral doesn't completely outshine an external hire in a general perspective. So much to the point that companies are willing to say, we'll give you $1,000, $3,000, depending on the company, to give us a good referral, right? If a company is willing to shell out their money for really just somebody to get hired, then there is reason behind why that's so valuable. So if you can get in, I'm not saying don't apply to positions blindly. Don't apply to a job if there's not a referral that you have there. But if you can utilize a referral, by all means, that is the absolute number one way to do things. And start by setting that up early. Because you don't want to set, I'll go through this in the video, but you don't want to just reach out to somebody and say, hey, so nice to meet you, Adam. I really want to work at your company. Would you mind referring me? Adam has no reason to want to refer me to his jobs, right? Because he doesn't know me. You have to build that relationship first. So it's better to
Yeah.
actually start by reaching out to people who don't have jobs for you first, and then
Yep.
playing the waiting game. This is the long play.
It's
This
a
isn't
long
the quick
play.
and
It
dirty. This isn't the quick
absolutely
and dirty way to
is.
get a job. But this is
Yeah.
the most successful, tried and true way to have a significant amount of success.
After
So
all these years of recruiting, it still preserves itself as the number one source of hire for companies.
significantly.
So
Well,
if
and would
there's
you would
yeah,
you would you say too that it makes your job a bit easier when someone's
it
coming in
100%.
on a
it
referral?
does, it does,
100%.
and it challenges us to carry the baton of expanding our networks. So no opportunity is so small because to showcase your value as a recruiter, you also have to be ultra connected, and you also have to be willing to jump into X leads network after you connected them on LinkedIn that you just got paired with to go and hire 7 people for their team or seven new hires for their team. And you got to jump in their network and say, hey, have you considered Joe, Sally, and Tim and Brian? Oh my God, I completely forgot about them. That's a great idea. Let's go ahead. So you also want to showcase once you get that foot in the door to interview first, you want to showcase how broad your involvement is with the community and your network as well, because the recruiter during the screen will also think bigger picture if they're this calculated, not all, but if they're this calculated, they'll say, you know what, this is a great hire because even if they're able to do 70% of the job and then within that 90-day onboarding window, we bake in the 30% to catch them up to speed, they're also bringing a network with them that could help us accelerate our hiring. So never shy away from talking about your network and your involvement within gaming, and also what events you attend, how actively involved you are on communities. I saw there were some Discord mentions in our chat here. Um, Nothing is too small. So, the network effect is real, and it will ultimately also lead to your compensation conversations because your net worth is your network. Your network is your net worth. So.
That's really, really good for you. So I want to be mindful of the time because we only have a few minutes left. How are you guys on time, Sean
I'm
and
okay. I
I
can
Josh?
could
go
go
over.
over. Yeah, I could go
Yeah.
over.
Okay, great. So that'll give us some time to get to some of the questions from the group. If there's anybody from the attendees side who has to go, I did want to share this really quickly. This is their contact info for everybody who is on the call right now, the panelists anyways. There's me. Uh, there's my email, there's my phone number. My LinkedIn is just, linkedin.com/in/the Adam Hobbs. Again, if you have any follow-up questions for me that I can relay to the panelists, happy to do that. And honestly, if you really want to talk seriously about accelerating your career, whether it's like your job search or whether you're just trying to figure out your next move in your career. You're trying to just do better and level up in your career. Please just reach out to me. You can scan that QR code. That'll take you to the gamingcareers.gg website where there are free resources for you, and you can book a 30-minute strategy call with me directly from the website. There's Josh's information, Sean's information. Feel free to take a picture of this if you got your phone out right now. And yeah, stay in touch. Like Josh just said, your network is your net worth. So consider this three high net worth individuals added to your network right now. So let's jump back into. So I saw some questions here. The first one came from Daniel. What about using AI to speed up the addition of my CV, but proofreading it myself to make sure it doesn't sound like a robot speaking? All the info in my CV is accurate, but I used AI to make it sound a little better than what I would have done.
Great.
I think that's
Yeah,
fine. Yeah, I think that's
absolutely.
fine. I mean, Sean and I just admitted on this call, we're using it to make sure that we're sounding more profound while
Yeah,
we're summarizing your resume. So if anything, there's a world your AI is talking to our AI and we're sussing it out together if it's working. And I
yeah,
think that's totally fine. But again, I'll always go back to just make sure that it's telling the proper story because if you're showcasing you were a barista and then you took on a project coordinator role and then you got a data analyst role and then you went back to a project manager role and you're applying for a PMO role or a data analyst lead role, I'm going to be confused on, where your pure skill set is most recently. And if you're punching above your weight class or not for this opportunity. So if you're going to use it, just make sure you're using it and prompting it correctly. Because if you don't prompt AI correctly, it could give you what you feel is a proper response and end result. It could be a cannibalizing result. And it's just
yeah.
because it was prompted incorrectly.
Yeah, the biggest thing, Daniel, that I would advise with this is understand that AI has no originality. Like you have to really make sure you understand that. The problem with AI, that like what AI is just regurgitating from the World Wide Web, which is incredible. It's things that we can't do as humans because we can't know that much information that quickly. That's why it's incredible. But it's not original. It's never taking something and saying like, oh, here's an original thought I have. It's saying here is the thoughts of 55 million people who share this idea, and I'm presenting that to you. And I could even be presenting it to
Mm,
you as it coming off as my thought, but understanding it's a robot, it doesn't have a thought, right? So that's where you get AI slop. That's where that term AI slop comes from. It's just I'm putting in this prompt, write me this paragraph, and then it just does, and you don't go in and edit it, you don't give it your own voice, you don't give it your own thoughts or feelings. That's what's really obvious to recruiters,
mm.
because it's always clear. For example, I'll give you a really fun example. I am the D&D guy of my company. I love D&D. I have been a DM for many years, and once I started learning that, like, oh, I can start using AI to kind of help me write some of my prompts and come up with some hooks and some ideas, and like I
Right,
heavily
right.
use AI in my D&D games. But what I've learned is that I started just letting AI, I'm like, okay, write me an intro to this scene, like set up this scene for my players. And I would do that a few times, and I started noticing it's using the exact same terminology. It's giving me the exact same feel. The words might be slightly different, but the pacing's the same. The kind of analogies it's giving is very the same, and it all just became very muddied, right? So as soon as I realized that, I stopped just relying on AI to do it myself. And I started saying, okay, well, give me some ideas and I'll start reworking it into my own voice so it comes off as authentic. And my games went from being great down to a little bit of like really kind of samey with the AI stuff back to being great because I'm not just relying on it to do all of the work. Let it do the heavy lifting. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But never just let it be the only thing that's making decisions.
Yeah, it'll
Hmm.
it'll only give it the answers that you'll receive is by the book answers. There's no outside the box thinking, to Sean's point.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're
Hmm.
creative, if you're a creator or you like to be creative with your approach, um, you just always have that in mind that it's going to give you, based off of the research available online, this is the best by the book way of going about it.
Mm.
It's like
And also, like,
I hated school personally, so I always thought outside of what the book was telling you. But that's why it's fun to play with AI in a challenging it to the degree of like, don't give me the by the book answer. Like this is how I'm going about it. So try to match my style of thinking. And yeah, it's fun.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, there's an interesting follow-up to that from D'Angela. Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah, yeah. Do you think I'm at a disadvantage if I don't use AI tools to revise and fix my resume?
Um,
That's hard to answer because I don't know you. I don't know how smart you are, how clever you are. Um, I don't necessarily think it's automatically putting you at a disadvantage, but if I were to try to do it, like if I'm putting myself in your shoes, right, and asking that question for myself, I feel like I might be at a slight disadvantage because again, I paid a friend of mine $5 to write a single page paper. I'm not good at expressing my ideas like that. Like I can write different things. I can write about dragons all I want to and have a lot of fun with that. But when it comes to like critical, like evaluating what I've done and putting that on paper and translating it to what the job's asking me, like I blank on it. I'm not good at it, and so I can't really answer that question for you. If you feel competent and confident that you can provide the same
yeah,
level of quality to
I agree.
relate your skills to the job, then great, go for it. You don't need AI. I don't think it necessarily hurts to run it by it and be like, hey, what do you think of this? Like, is there anything I'm missing? Sure, but that's totally up to you.
Yeah,
Mm,
I
mm.
agree with that. I agree with that. And also, you could prompt it just to pull dummy resumes of, or you could even prompt it to say like, hey, here's the job description that I really want. Here's the job I really want. Can you give me three or four examples of candidates that would be ultra qualified for that? And then look at your resume. That you don't necessarily have to use it to write your resume, but you could use it to pull other examples of resumes. And if you wanted to on LinkedIn, think through the lens of a recruiter. If you do find yourself in this constant struggle of trying to land a door opening, at least recruiter screen, where if you see a role for, let's say, a director of analytics in mobile gaming, like go ahead and utilize the search engine within LinkedIn. You easily, not even with the LinkedIn recruiter seat, have the ability to say director of analytics, mobile gaming, and then filter through people, and then you could filter through the city that you're living in, and you could see all the top director of analytics from mobile gaming in your city and how well you compare against them.
Mhm. Also, I want to add one more thing to this too, D'Angelo, because this made me think of something really interesting. Beyond just the resume, like your resume will get you in the door, but at the end of the day, your resume is not going to get you the job, right? You could have the best
Yeah,
resume in the world.
yeah,
You could have the best
great
looking
point.
resume, the resume that expresses your abilities super well, and that will get you that interview, might even get you past the recruiter, but the hiring manager is going to see through the BS, right?
Mm.
If people, I'm not saying you, D'Angelo, I'm using you, the royal you. If people in general are using AI to just do the thinking for them, they never have to critically think themselves. When it comes to the time where, hey, I am now having to represent my ideas in front of another human being who understands my ideas or is trying to understand my ideas, and you can't present them because you're so used to letting AI do the thinking for you, now you are at a significant disadvantage. Even if you used AI heavily to make the best resume in the world, now you're at a significant disadvantage from somebody like you, D'Angelo, who didn't use and rely on AI heavily to do all the work for them. You have a much sharper mind because you're having to think on your feet more often than somebody who is not doing that and letting AI do it for them. So it's,
Mm.
like this entire conversation has been heavily geared towards the resume, the ATS systems, AI, and the influencing of like getting the process started. But understand that all of this is just the beginning of the process. You still have to impress me or Josh. You still have to impress the hiring manager. You have to impress the team. You have to impress the hiring manager's boss, the director, or the VP of that role. Like there are people who are going to be able to see through the BS very, very clearly. Even if like I'm not an engineer, I hire a lot of engineers, and engineers can speak on things it's such a high level over my comprehension because again, it's just not my forte. I took one HTML and CSS class in college and thought it was the bane of my existence for that semester. So
Mm.
I can't keep up with a principal AI programmer. I get like the basics of it. Hey, I understand that you know what you're doing, and I can get that. But when you start getting into the weeds, like I'm not gonna be able to do that. I'm not gonna be able to keep up with you. You know who can? The hiring manager, the team, the director. And so if you're just like, oh, AI does all the work for me, well, then those people are going to be able to see through that in a heartbeat. So you are now significantly lower than the rest of your competition, regardless of how
Yeah.
your
Mm.
resume looks.
Yeah.
Mm.
Great
Lawrence
point.
is asking a question here, which might kind of be related. What are the biggest things you've found to connect to the project and team those first few minutes during the process? Hmm.
Let me read
I'm not
that.
really sure what's meant by that, Lawrence.
Mhm.
Maybe you can articulate if you want to go off mute or and talk us through that.
Sure, let's see if my mic's working. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Hey, thanks to everyone for being here. It's really insightful and helpful. Besides obviously story and connecting, what are those first few, let's say, hooks that connect you to the team, the project, that stand out over the normal use cases, or what people would, or what would help us think outside the box with those situations?
Ah, yeah.
Like,
So what would a candidate do to like help connect with a project or team? Yeah.
yeah, I think so first and foremost, networking and knowing, of course, referrals, great. But just, just having an understanding and a deep and not even just a basic understanding, but a deep understanding of what that team's doing, what that project is. The number of people that I get who will either send me a message of what roles do you have open for me? I'm like, I don't know. What are you qualified to do? I'm not here to just straight up evaluate you without any context. So come to me with something that you're interested in, and then we can kind of go from there. But alternatively, it's also like I've interviewed a number of people who, for example, I've interviewed many people who for like the Doom games, right? And people like, oh, I've never played Doom. I'm like, okay, well, what do you know about Doom? I don't know. I've seen a couple of videos. Why am I interested in you then? Like I have 40 other people who are just as qualified who love Doom as a franchise. And I want to hire those people because they're enthusiastic about it. Come prepared. Like know what you're getting into. Do extensive
Hmm.
research on the team, the company, the products that they're making, the games they make. Like know it inside and out. You shouldn't just go into an interview and think to yourself, I'm just going to imprompt this entire interview and it's going to be fine, right? And that might be okay for like an initial recruiter screen in some cases, but especially you start getting to the team interviews, the panels, the directors, the managers, like they need to know that you're invested in their company, even if it's still like, even if you're still on the fence about whether you want to work for this company or work for the other company that you're interviewing with, you should still come prepared and present yourself like this is the only company that I'm interested in right now, even if it's not. Just your attitude and the way you present yourself should be read that way because you come prepared with thoughts, notes, questions. Oh my God, have good questions for interviewers. Not just what do you like working at id, not just what's your favorite part about this. Oh, what's the PTO like? These are all fine questions, but have a question on in there that's really related to the job you do. How do
Mm.
you guys handle art pipelines in relation to the engineering work for tech art? Like, how does that process look for you guys? We do it this way. I'm used to this thing. How do you guys do that? Is it different from what I'm used to? Like, having that
Mm.
question that will engage into a conversation will make so much more. Right. And a lot of that obviously comes from like having the actual conversations. But you can still, but it's still extremely vital.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and so what
I
I'm
agree.
hearing is that you're kind of saying to like when you're doing some outreach to potential peers that you can ask questions like that. You could
Absolutely.
ask that in an interview setting as well, but like that sounds to me like something like some really good like way of establishing some common ground and connective tissue, with
Hmm.
somebody. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely gives you a speaking point to connect with that individual on. And I would say, yeah, the whatever you're able to extract, and you could even use AI to say, hey, you know what, I have this upcoming interview with Mattel coming up, and I'm not at the job description, although it gave me an idea of what this Mattel digital studio is. Can you pull some news articles or some press releases that are capturing some of their more recent efforts so that way I'm better prepared for my interview.
Mm.
100%.
So here's another question from Daniel, which I think is kind of cool too, and it's something that you touched on a little bit, Sean, right? Like, and the question he asks is like, what about sending messages, cold messages to recruiters? I think, the sort of how I'd reframe that is like, what's the best way to do that? Is that even a good idea? Talk about that.
Yeah. Uh, I'm such a mixed bag on this because I'm not trying to promote myself too much, like, but I feel like I'm a pretty nice guy. Like, I don't like to just leave people hanging, even if I, don't have something for them. I'll still respond back to them, as soon as I possibly can. It might be a few weeks, but depending on how busy I am, but I will always try to get
Hmm.
back to people. But honestly, like sending out messages out to recruiters, it doesn't do a lot. It doesn't not help, but I don't think it also directly helps in most cases. If you're Here's a situation where that does help. If you know that, like, hey, I my experience is 90% of what you're looking for or more, right? And I'm not just saying like, oh, I've worked for this small indie studio and we did a lot of similar things. It's like, no, I come from AAA games. I have all this experience. It's a first person shooter just like id, fast paced, high tech. Like, all these things are very equal. You could probably reach out, and there's like 400 people who apply to the job. Then yeah, maybe reach out to me and be like, it might help stand you out from the pack. But the biggest thing that I see with people reaching out to me, coldly, is I either get hi, I'm trying to get a job in games. What positions do you think I'm a good fit for? Which is, again, you're making me do a ton of work for you, and like I don't want to do
Hmm.
that.
Mm.
Don't
And
want that.
even if I do link you our careers page, I already have a bad taste in my mouth about you. Um, right? Like I'm like, I already don't want to engage with you anymore if I don't have to.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'll be nice and friendly, but my enthusiasm for you is gone. Um, but also kind of keep in mind that as recruiters, we can't really do much with that. Like, our job essentially is to refer people, right?
Yeah.
And would you rather have me referring you to the job, which is something that I'm going to do anyways, or would you rather have Paul Smith, who's a principal engineer at Blizzard, on the team referring you to the job? Right? Like, consider whose opinion weighs more. If you reach out to me and I say, oh yeah, you applied, okay, cool, well, I set you up with a pre-screen. Like, best case scenario is that you're going to get a pre-screen from me. But if you got a referral from Paul Smith at Blizzard for a job at Blizzard, well, first off, Paul Smith, say he's a senior. Again, all this is in that video. Say Paul Smith is a senior engineer. Well, senior engineer is likely going to be on the interview panel. So that means that hiring manager trusts Paul's opinion, to make good references for the position because he knows what the hiring manager is looking for. Plus, Paul has a number of years of experience, so he can qualify you on his own to say, yes, you are a good fit for this position, and I can qualify that because I understand the job. That means way more than just me saying, hey, Mr. Hiring Manager, I talked to this guy, Adam. He seems like a pretty cool guy. Seems like his experience lines up, but ultimately, you're going to have to be the one to say if he is technically a good fit or not. I can't be the person who does that. Paul Smith can do both. Paul Smith has the ability to say, this person is not only a fun person to work with, but he is technically proficient in this job and can do the job, he or she. So, anyways, but yeah, I think
Mm.
it's not necessarily bad, but it also is not the best use of your time either.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat too. Like I always tell my clients to reach out to your potential peers or even like hiring managers first, and really work hard to build those relationships because they're going to have their finger on the pulse of what they need. Maybe they're going to know about something that they need before they even go and talk to the recruiters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you kind of skip the line.
And
Yeah.
a good hack to be able to pinpoint who those hiring managers might be. Look at the title of the role, try to put that title into LinkedIn, and then filter by people again. And then it'll
Mm-hmm.
show you like digital gaming, director of product. Okay, you just looked at a role that's a product manager on the digital gaming. The likelihood of reaching out to them, connecting with them, and then saying like, hey, I noticed that you were on this team. I know X, Y, and Z who we're also mutually connected with. I just want to let you know I applied for this role. I'd love 5 minutes of your time. It's not a guarantee, but it's a starting point, and it's one extra step that you took that maybe
Oh,
the mass populated AI approach to just distributing your resume was.
yeah. And also, Josh, like, nothing's guaranteed, to your
Yeah.
point. right? Like all of everything we're doing is basically just like adding little percentage points as a bonus to you. I don't know if everyone has ever played like World of Warcraft or like any other big MMOs, but if you ever had a game you've played that has like a talent tree, and that talent tree might be like 1% additional critical hit chance. And it's like, that seems so insignificant. 1%, one time out of 100 hits, I'm going to get a crit. That seems so low. But it's also a critical skill to have for that class. Like it's always going to be.
Hmm.
All of these things, they are little incremental improvements. Taking the profile, summary, whatever you want to call it, off of your resume, again, not going to be this big revolutionary thing that's going to get you a job interview, but it's 1% closer to getting that job. Then making sure your resume is not 5 pages long. It's only 1 page or at most 2 pages. Again, you're adding another percentage point to making that happen. It's just these little things you kind of add up, and the more you do it, that will help increase the chances of you getting that interview, that job. But it's never a guarantee. There is nothing that is guaranteed.
Mm, yeah. So I'd like to, if you guys have time, there's one last question that I think is really really cool, and then we'll go ahead and end
Let's
the
do it.
session. But D'Angela, great questions today, by the way, D'Angela. But this one's really good. Has an applicant's personal or passion project related to games ever convinced you to, well, not hire them, but at least move them to the interview, or give them bonus
Absolutely.
points?
$100
Absolutely.
Yeah.
million.
Yeah, as long as it's coming from a genuine, again, connecting piece to your story of why the role you just applied for makes sense and the reason why you even surface this side project to the table, it will absolutely help us see beyond what the resume limitations might be. I'll give you an example at Activision, when we were hiring an account manager. This candidate, now, Sean, I'd love to debate this one with you on a different time,
Love
but
it.
adding a photo to your resume, it's hit or miss. But what this candidate did that we did ultimately hire, um, made a Candy Crush uh, avatar version of herself and had a description like a Pokemon card has, where it's like the skills and then the weaknesses. And I just said, holy beep, this is awesome. I have looked at
Mm-hmm.
thousands of resumes and I have not seen anybody put this type of creativity to
It's a
this.
risk.
Yeah.
So
That's such a good.
I immediately got on a call with her and I was that much more motivated to push her to the hiring manager because I said, the hiring manager I was working with at the time was the director of sales West Coast. I said, if this individual is taking their time out of their day to go beyond what a traditional resume looks like and showcase the tie-in to they know they could sell, but now they're creative as well. Imagine what they could do for a passionate company of theirs like ours. And we ultimately hired them.
That's a great example. I only say that's a risky maneuver just because depending on how graphically heavy a resume is,
Agree.
can
Agree.
really determine, like some ATSs can't handle that and it'll just come up as like a bunch of emojis. It's like wingdings all the way down. And it's like, I don't even
Yeah.
know what you were trying to do. And if I got
Hmm.
100 people in play, I'm just gonna reject you and move on. I mean, I don't have time to reach out and be like, hey, resubmit your resume. It didn't work. So, like that is a risky maneuver. Obviously it worked out really well for that individual. And I think, again, that comes back to like, if you make me laugh, if you can get a reaction out of me, a positive reaction out of me, I'm absolutely going to do that. To your point, Josh, too, like, we may not be the ultimate deciding factors on things, but, if we're, and Josh, I'm assuming that you're definitely, I know you're a good recruiter too, and I'm assuming that you probably have hiring managers, at least some, who do rely on you a little bit for your opinion. They may not be the ultimate deciding factor, but I've absolutely had a couple of hiring managers saying, "Hey, I got 3 people here. I like them all. What do you think? What are your thoughts?" And I'll be a sounding board. I'll never say like, "Hey, you should hire this person." But if I was like, "Hey, well, Heather was really good. She kind of ticks all the boxes. And also, Heather did that one thing in her interviews that those other candidates didn't do that was really impressive or wowed us or fill in the blank. Doesn't matter. But was something extra that, everybody else didn't do. I can be like, hey, yeah, like, remember that? Like, that was really good. And if all things are equal, we might as well go with the person who impressed us just a tiny bit more.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that is really, really big. And I also think that, being able to share those stories, it will impress people because the more that you can I think the more that you can impress somebody, the more likely, things are going to work out. And it doesn't even have to be so related to like, oh, I did this thing with this company. It's directly related to what you're looking to do. Sometimes it can be just a story from the past. And I'll give you, this is my last example of a story, but I interviewed, this is before games, by the way, but I interviewed for Python engineers at a small startup company. And this one guy told me a story about when he was 15 years old, he built a plane by himself out of junkyard parts and flew it. And I thought that was crazy. I thought that was the craziest thing because, first off, whose parents are letting their 15-year-old build and fly a plane? Second thing, though, I thought to myself is, how inventive is this guy? How out of the box thinker is this person? And he wasn't even the most qualified person. He was a little junior for the position we needed to fill. I immediately pushed that guy to hiring managers because of how wild that story is. Like, you got to hear this guy. You got to talk to him. He ended up getting the job. We brought it down from a senior to a mid so we could hire the guy. Right?
Wow.
But you
Is
have
he
to
based in Seattle?
you have to come down. No, this is Chicago all the way. But,
oh wow, nice.
But you can't rely on that. Like, I'm not saying that, oh, you have to have some story about flying a plane at 15 to impress people. You got to find what works for you, right? But if you can engage somebody, here's what I'll say this way: turning an interview into a conversation is the best way to move forward.
Oh yeah,
If you're just
100%
answering,
agree.
if a hiring manager just asks, well, here's my list of questions, and you're just providing a list of answers to the questions, it's so dry. And it's not saying that it's going to not get you a job, but if you can turn that into actually, you know what, that question is interesting, but let me provide a different path. Let's take this question and go down this route instead and answer a completely different question that's somewhat related to this. Like, if you can turn it into a back and forth conversation, you are significantly more memorable to a hiring manager, to an interviewer, to anybody on their side of the screen. Or
Because that's human stuff right there. I mean, humans love to connect, and just like Josh was saying early, like, it's all about the story. Your resume is your story, or it's a piece of art, like you said, Sean. Not the most beautiful or fantastic, but still, like, it has to be something that gets people excited about learning more about you. And then when you're actually sitting in an interview and you're hitting them up with like some crazy stories about building airplanes or whatever, or just doing what you can to like impress and engage them in a conversation versus being like, I'll just answer the questions and I'll do it in a way that I hope that they like me, as opposed
Can I
to
leave you with
confidently
one?
saying like,
Yeah,
I'm your guy,
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
true.
the
And one
best.
one tidbit. Sorry, Sean. I just got
But
to throw this one in there. Um, Make sure you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. I'd hate to take this whole conversation and move it into the parallel universe of dating, but in a way,
it's so true,
if
though.
you are swiped right or swiped left and now you are on your first date, um, you got to interview this individual who's building this team and get clarity from them on what does the future of this team look like and how long are you building this team for? And you're able to quickly extract, is this a long-term play? And if so, then I have to present the long-term value of what I'm looking for and where I am set up for the most success based on my accolades of work. Because if you're interviewing for a startup, you can't ignore the reality that that startup could flop in 8 months from now. So if you got to tailor your interview style to, I've come in, I've executed X, Y, and Z, and data, and efficiency, and move quick and be agile and handle ambiguous environments, then that's a great conversation for a startup. But if you're interviewing with the studio that's been established for 20 plus years and they're well within their ways of working, and now they just need an extra bit of firepower into the already existing role, like you should be extracting, is this a net new headcount? Is this a new way of evaluating a role that you haven't had before? Or is this a quick churn and burn type of plug and play role that I know I'm setting myself up for a realistic outcome of like a 2 year ride? And if you're able to extract that in an interview, that's how you should go about telling your story and whichever way is going to make the best first impression on that date.
Completely agree. I've used the dating is interviewing analogy so many times. It's so parallel. It's on so many levels. It's parallel. So, but yeah,
Sounds
I
like it. Yeah.
absolutely agree, Josh.
Mm. Well, wonderful, guys. Well, thank you so much for providing your time and all this amazing
Of course.
insight. I mean, we were here for like 90 plus minutes.
Yeah, it was
Thank
good.
you to everybody who came and asked questions. We really appreciate it. Without you, there is no panel. So appreciate you guys like hanging in there and listening. And I'll go ahead and throw up the contact information just one more time in case anybody missed it. Let it hang up there for a minute or so. But yeah, sorry, just stay close. Follow us on LinkedIn, or join my email list, and you'll hear more about these really insightful and informative panels. And be gentle when now stalking Josh and Sean for roles at their places of business. But yeah, thank you everybody for being a part of this. It's been so cool. And yeah, I really hope everybody got something out of this. I definitely did.
Thank you, Adam.
Awesome.
Thank you for setting this up. And
Definitely.
I just threw a fun YouTube video in the chat. I was asked last year to be hooked up to a lie detector test unknowingly, and me and three other interviewers, all from tech and startup and gaming, were all
Uh,
pretty much hooked up to a lie detector test unknowingly. And to see the reaction, it's quite a hoot. So just throwing that out
Ooh,
there because I feel like it
love
ties in
it.
nicely to this conversation.
that is really cool.
Lovely.
I was low key hoping you were gonna rickroll us, but
I
good
wish, I
times.
That was
wish,
so good.
I wish. That'd
It
be
would have
great.
been. Check out
Next
this cool thing
time.
I did. Da 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 da.
Next time.
Never gonna
Next
give you
time.
up.
All
All
right,
right. Well,
everybody.
thank you
Well,
all. Thank you, Adam.
happy Friday, happy May Day. Enjoy your weekend. Have a wonderful, and prosperous job search, or job journey wherever you are in your journey. And we'll see you on the road. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, everyone.
All right,
Take
take
care.
care, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye.